Right, we've got apologies and absences.
Thank you, Chair. We have an apology from Councillor Morrison with no substitution, and an apology from Councillor Fox and Councillor Allen Cannon to join us.
Thank you.
You should be so glad.
Well, minutes of the last meeting. Are we all happy with that? Yes. Absolutely. Yep, lovely. And then declarations of interest. Are there any? No. Questions or notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38.
Thank you, Chair. We received no questions.
Okay, brilliant. We are now going to go to item 8, report of the Assistant Director of Finance and IT, table of outstanding issues.
Yes, thank you. So we thought we'd take this time to shuffle the agenda around to give the opportunity for Stephen Tiero to provide an update. So the report's got more in it. This report's got more in it because I'll take you through in a moment. But Steve, I don't have to provide an update. I did circulate the information you provided yesterday. So thank you for that. But are you happy to provide an update of where you are with the outstanding audits?
Yeah, I can do. Sorry, I think the sound wasn't great then, but I think you asked me to provide an update on the audits. Is that correct?
Yeah, please, Steve. I'll lift my voice a little bit more. But yeah, if you can provide an update, because we did share the information you got around yesterday. So that's the information that you emailed through. We did share. So members have got hopefully a copy of that. So, but yeah, if you can provide an update of where you are, that'd be really appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I guess the position in terms of our audits is largely unchanged from where we were when we last came to this committee. So I guess what has changed is that there was the consultation that was issued by DLUC on the 8th of February, which was around the steps that the government was proposing to take in terms of addressing the significant backlogs within the local government audit market. So that consultation closed early March, and we haven't yet seen the government's final proposal, so we don't yet know what they are going to bring into place as a result of that consultation. Although I think we can be fairly confident that it will be very similar to what they consulted on. So that will introduce a statutory backstop date of 30th of September 24 for all audits to be completed up to and including the 22-23 year. So what that would mean for us is that we would be able to complete your 2021 audit, and we've kind of set out within the paper that was circulated yesterday a timetable for completing that audit. Assuming there is a backstop date of 30th of September, what we wouldn't be able to do is complete your 21-22 or 22-23 audits. So we would be in the position there of disclaiming our audit opinion on those sets of financial statements. As I say, the deadline we think the deadline for doing that will be the 30th of September this year. So we will need to do some work over the summer in order to get us to a position where we are able to issue those both those disclaimed audit reports and also our reports on your 2021 financial statements. Alongside the work that we will do on the financial statements, we will also need to, or the consultation envisages auditors undertaking a piece of value for money work. So that piece of work would cover the arrangements that you had in place for all open years up to and including 22-23, but it would be a single piece of work covering all 3 years. So there wouldn't be 3 auditors' annual reports. It would be 1 auditor's annual report that covers all 3 of those years. Or certainly that's what the consultation envisaged. So assuming that is what is finally decided upon, that's what we will need to do. Probably isn't a huge. Obviously, happy to take questions on any of that. But at this stage, that's the extent of what we know. So we know that consultation has happened, has closed. We haven't yet seen the government's final proposals, but I think we can be reasonably certain that what they consulted on is what will come in.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Yes, so basically it will be a value for money opinion with a disclaimer. Is that?
So on your two. So if you take your 2021 financial statements, we expect to be able to give a full audit opinion on those accounts. For 21-22 and 22-23, we will not give an opinion on those set of financial statements. So it will be a disclaimed audit opinion. And then there will be one auditor's annual report that will look at your use of resources arrangements, and that will cover all 3 of those open years.
Okay, brilliant. And then in August, you're working on the handover to KPMG as well.
So I'll have a conversation with Emma and her team to kind of explain where we're up to, and yes, do some sort of handover with her and her team. Some time ago we provided copies to KPMG of kind of previous reports that we've done on the council and had some initial discussions, but we will obviously have more detailed conversations over the course of the summer.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Yes.
Thanks, Steve. So, can you just clarify on the 3 years and 1 then? Is that going to short circuit the process? So, for instance, if you're going to do a yearly one, so the 3 yearly ones, but then you're going to do 3 years in 1, is that going to be quicker than doing the 3 yearly ones?
I think I just want to be clear that we'll give 3 opinions on financial statements, one full opinion on 2021, and 2 disclaimed opinions. So just want to be really clear about that. The use of resources work is the one piece of work that will cover the 3 years. I mean, I think it won't. It's not going to be a really quick piece of work, but it's something that we can certainly complete over the period of the summer in order to bring that to you by the 30th of September. So we don't envisage any problems in meeting that statutory backstop date. In terms of exactly how long it will take, it's difficult to say at this stage because we're at quite early stage in completing that work. But we would imagine it would take somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, to cover all 3 of those years and produce the auditor's annual report.
Okay. Yep. So it's
Thank you. First of all, to Richard, the unqualified report for the 3 years. How do you feel about that?
I think the discussion we've had at full council, and the bit I'm nervous about, I think Steve's addressed that, but hopefully Steve might provide some more information to give you the assurance. I think for me it's the value for money opinion that's really, really important, because you haven't had one for quite a while. So I think the value for money opinion will cover things like financial sustainability and financial standing, the important stuff that we discussed at full council about where you get your assurance from. And the moment your assurance is from me, I want independent assurance that the council's in a good place. So on that note, I don't know, Steve, are you happy to give a little bit more detail around what that value for money opinion, that work gives members in terms of their assurance, around those kind of the high level things it covers? So members need to hopefully get that assurance around the things you will be kind of commenting on. That'd be really handy if you're happy to do that, Steve.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear that we don't, under the revised code arrangements that came into effect from 21 2021, we don't give a formal opinion on value for money arrangements. What we do is we are required to produce an auditor's annual report, and within that we will comment on your arrangements, and if we identify any significant weaknesses in those arrangements, we will highlight those. But we don't give a formal opinion anymore in the way that we did for the years 2019, 20 and earlier. But that's not to say that we won't still provide you with a fairly detailed report that sets out our commentary on your arrangements. We look at the kind of key focus for us is around governance arrangements. So kind of the arrangements that you've got in place, your committee arrangements, for example, scrutiny arrangements, decision-making processes, those kinds of areas. We will also look at your arrangements for planning your finances, for example, so medium-term financial strategy, but your processes for setting your budget. It's those kind of areas. There's some fairly, I can try and provide it, I can certainly provide it to you. There's some fairly detailed guidance on the NAO's website that sets out the areas that we would cover. So I'm happy to provide that to you if you want to. But as I say, it's the real focus of it is around governance arrangements and your financial position.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful if you could provide that. That would be useful for us. And my other question, I guess, relates to you've given us a date of the 30th of September, based on delays that we've suffered up until this point. What's changed for you that you can give us reassurance that that 30th of September date remains absolutely without fail date?
So I'm not saying that we will go right up until the 30th of September. So that's just the statutory backstop date. So we have to do it by the 30th of September. So we would obviously hope to complete the work in advance of that. I mean, in a sense, the kind of main area of work that we just need to complete is those 2021 financial statements. So we've already made some progress on those. Shamo, who's on the call, will be completing her review on those areas. So we've looked very carefully at what audits we have got left to complete over that period, where we think we can complete those audits, and made an assessment of those that we think that we can complete and those that we think that we won't be able to complete. And so that's, in a sense, we're looking at the resources, what's left to complete is why we're able to give you the assurance that we can complete that audit by certainly in advance of the 30th of September. Okay.
And you're confident in terms of the handover that everything can be done smoothly and handed over efficiently, and yeah, anything else to expand on that would be helpful.
Well, we'll certainly have a conversation with Emma and her team. I think, though, just to be clear, as I've said, we are expected to disclaim our opinion on 21, 22 and 22, 23. So in terms of the level of assurance we can give to you and Emma and her team, it's obviously going to be limited, but we will obviously share whatever we can with Emma and her team.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve.
Are you happy to let Chairman Steve go, I suppose?
Yeah. If you would like to finish, then that's absolutely fine. We can stay on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Are we going to continue?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
On the item 8 issues. I tend to go to the appendices first. I think more so now because we've caught a lot of queries, questions, which is quite widely posed, and some of those are ongoing. and there's quite a few bits and pieces there. So I won't go through each one in turn, but really asking, are you happy with progress where you said you've got to, and the next steps on some of those outstanding matters? So there's quite a few bits and pieces there, and we'll work on those ongoing. I think one of the things I would like to kind of just draw to your attention is on page 95, which was around discussions we've had in the past about the revenue review, which reviewed a number of issues around audit of councils or other authorities. And we were waiting, well I was waiting, if no one else was, for, I suppose, legislation to change about implementing this independent person on your committee. SIFA have issued guidance that says if there's lack of a statutory responsibility to have an independent person in the committee, their guidance, their strong guidance, is they'll expect you to have 2 independent persons on your committee. So I think from our perspective, we can say we don't agree with that. I think we have to articulate why we don't agree with that. I don't think we're saying, I think having an independent person, we've had conversations around that, it does seem to be best practice, and I think what it does, it captures that, and you've got the annual governance statement coming to you in the not too distant future, which for me is a key governance item about actually just work on that. So one agreement that is the right way forward, and then we'll capture that, and as officers we'll take that away. We'll also involve you in any process, but we'll take that away and progress that, and keep up to date with that one. So that's quite an important point, the difference going forward.
Question. Independent, how do you determine the suitability of that independent? Would they have to have a financial background? Is that something we are looking for? Are you expecting hundreds of people to line up for the position? I mean, how is your vision on that?
I think it's a good point. I think what we need to do is we need to be quite clear about person spec. We're not person spec for the skills. They've got to have adequate skills to speak knowledge to operate effectively, and I think that's a person specification. I don't think it's going to be one where they've got queuing people. I might be wrong, people keen. But I think we need to get the person spec right on that one, and that involves you guys as well, so we need to make sure we get it right. And then because one of the discussions we had before was we've got an independent person who operates on the independent remuneration panel, and could we kind of have that kind of cross skill set? Don't know, perhaps it doesn't fit that well, who knows? It might be the person might fit, but the person's specification, the remuneration panel might not fit. So I think they need to look at that. So hopefully, one thing out, we'll bring those back to you. The thing for me is identifying the person's specification. What does the skill set need to be for those people to operate better?
Supplement. So in determining the qualification you need to serve the committee, you said the officers would take that away, and when the final decision on who you would put there, would that also include the chair of the audit committee, so there is an input from the members themselves?
It's got to be, it's got to involve everyone. So okay. I think there's a way for us to say, we keep coming back to yourself and agree those actions, and yeah, it's involved in all of the details of that successful appointment to the post. On the committee. So a lot of authorities, I think, have done that, so I'm praising with
Richard, would that be like a paid independent?
It's normally allowance. I don't talk about money. There's no allowance. I think that's part of that point, isn't it? Taking sort of answers about attracting people, and there's always expensive bits and pieces, and I think we have to see what this right, but that would be in the mix to successfully want people. This is anything else for your attention. Hopefully there's a good update across a number of items, and Appendix B. We did have that last time, so Appendix B is the update against the annual governance statement actions. So again, some of those are completely go. So what we'll do with this Appendix B, because it's an annual review, what we'll say on this one, we'll say, have these been successfully achieved? If they have, tick, that's fine. If they haven't been, we'll carry those forward into the new end governance statement review, plus any other items that we feel is sufficient to go on there. So they won't ever get lost. So we'll make sure that if you're happy they're complete to a satisfactory standard, then we'll remove those accordingly there. So hopefully again, a good bit of detail in there. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of where we are with those things, but you know, we'll always just come back every meeting to look at this, so there's all the opportunity to discuss these things forward. And I'll pause at that point because we'll have to sort of take us another one, but then we've got the line card report is on the housing review. So I hope you have to keep it to there, so you have to kind of finish off one bit.
Yeah, it is good to have that level of detail, and I like Appendix B quite a lot.
Good.
So just a couple of questions on Appendix A. One, in terms of the training, we were going to be getting a training schedule at some point coming out for 24-25. We're rushing through 2024. When can we expect to have that schedule, and what will it include?
Yes, and we're working with a chap, I think it is in section 4, really, really good. So if you get the right trainer, it's the worth the wait. How long it takes that. I think we work with an individual that I think we're struggling to get some dates delivered. So for me, we're not really where I like him to do the work, but we're struggling to agree dates. So when we move on, I think we've got to, because it's not going to sit there in another 9 months.
I don't think that's ideal.
So are we, it's one of our kind of key actions that me and Karen are talking about to move on. So it's a little bit embarrassing, we should move on now, but it's for the right reasons. I think we want this person to do it. I think we have to move on and find someone now. So that's why I honest with you, because it's really, really good person. I think it strikes a really good balance in terms of training. Because some training is done as you like, and you don't get much from it. I think some people really going to get the message across. So I'll talk to Karen, make an urgent action, and see if we can get something at least a bit more concrete for our next meeting in June. Because it's not the same thing in June, why not?
Exactly, and if anything can come out, Jen, prior to the next meeting and be shared with you via email, the agreement, that would be helpful. I think it would be beneficial for the committee as a whole.
Sure.
And sorry, one more question. In regard to the stakeholder sort of engagement, etc. item, which is the next item there, it says that the work is going to be carried out. Can you expand on what that further work might include? Where are we? Ensuring openness and comprehensive stakeholder engagement, planning and enforcement, and it's got completed. It's page 91 on the paper. Whether that matches.
That's the enforcement one, is that as well?
Oh, yeah, ensuring openness and comprehensive stakeholder engagement. Yes,
So in the notes it's saying completed, cabinet resolved, but then there's, it should be noted that further work is to be carried out to strengthen the decision-making process in the run-up to formal enforcement action. What can you just expand on?
I will take that away if you want. So I don't know the answer, so I shall talk to the services. If you have to update outside of an email,
that would be fine, Shannon, thank you.
Shall I signify to speak?
Yes.
Thank you. Richard, going back to the training, will that include name substitutes and any other will and salt which to come along, or how do you vision, what's your vision on that?
Definitely substitutes. I think this is one constitutionally anyone who's interested in the training, so I think we definitely won't miss anyone out who's a name substitute for this committee. Anyone else is willing, I'm never going to say no to anyone who's willing to have training, but it depends on the fact that if there's a bus over people, so I don't know if I'm in trouble, I'm not sure that will happen. But if you let us know who's interested, and we can cover that out, so there won't be a no necessarily.
Perhaps Chairman, the note could go out to group leaders to say this is, and then any other data.
Yeah, in conversations with other councils, with some training, we've been on with other councils as well, which will reduce the cost. So again, we look at various options about that. Sometimes that's difficult, sometimes you well-intentioned again, and if you don't quite get there, appreciate time scales, we don't want to sort of wait for the perfect moment, do we? We need to move on ourselves. So,
Getting caught by time scales.
But we're also a small committee, so we can share the cost then. Yes.
certainly not our comment. I think get the right training, which you know sell itself, shouldn't it? People should be keen to come along. And again, for us, we look at elsewhere, other councils, they offer training. Again, we've looked at that, and it doesn't come up that often. So, we'll see. We'll always ask the right questions and try to change we can see.
So that's number 8 done, yeah? Oh no. One. Okay, take it.
So, unfortunately, there was a slight glitch when we, in the actual Audit Committee agenda, the draft copy was attached to it. So you've had a copy significant this morning that's got a little bit more added to it. So you've heard me wax lyrical before about the regulatory standards that came in 1st of April in relation to housing and local government housing. So just over a year ago, we obviously were aware this was coming. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to get a view, a snapshot of where we were in comparison to what we knew about the regulatory standards at that point in time. So we engaged ILGA, which is the East of Essex Local Government Association, to come and do a review of our housing areas with a view to looking at the 22 consumer standards and tenant satisfaction measures that the regulator has introduced. We asked them to look at a number of specific areas, and you'll see this, we want to look at people, we want to look at systems, we want to look at budget, we want to look at governance. So those are the things that we thought, well, actually, we know where we think we are. But having a set of eyes from outside looking to say to you, actually, it's quite good at this, but less good at this, and you need to focus on bringing those up. So we had them in, and they met with my teams. They had meetings without me being there, without my management being there. They were very thorough in what they did. And then they came back with a series of recommendations and actions that they thought would be useful for us to bring us forward ready for the new regime. We held workshops, we had managers meetings, we did a whole plethora of different things to talk with the staff and introduce this system to them. The regulatory standard was not something that's optional. You have to sort of get people to understand this is something that we have to follow and we have to do. So with that in mind, and the report, the amended report you've got, will show you in italic some of the things that we did forward. You won't be surprised to discover that one of the things that I've mentioned this before was our data collection actually needed to be improved. It needed to be improved quite significantly. I've been committed to talk about elements of that in the past, so this is building upon that. What we did with it, we then invested quite significant sums of money in introducing new software systems. We also engaged contractors with stock condition surveys. Those stock condition surveys feed into our new system so that we have sort of seamless, as we collect the data from the stock condition surveys, those feed into them, and that gives us information that we can then use. We also went through quite a painful process of identifying where we were keeping data on lots of the different issues that we would need to report on. Those have been centralised and then have been fed into the new systems that we have a central point of collecting that data. And obviously with all these things, data is key, because once you have your data, you can then look at how you spend your money from your budgets based on what that data gives you. And the regulators insistent, I would suggest, that stock condition surveys have to be carried out. And whilst there was no fixed volume, some local authorities carried out 100% stock condition surveys, some carried less. We initially wanted 20%, and the leader asked us to increase to 25%, which is what we've done. We carried out about 10% of that at the moment, and we're getting some quite interesting data coming back from that. As I said, the point of that data is that when we have data that we can extrapolate, we can actually say, well, this is the money that we have in the HRA, how do we spend this money against this data. How do we spend our money wisely and efficiently? So for us, that's a huge piece of work that's ongoing. We had to look at a lot of strategies. As pointed out, that we had strategies that had waned. We missed targets. We had to make sure we renewed those strategies. So our portfolio holder has been vigorous, I think is the word I would use, in ensuring that we have our strategies coming forward. And you have seen that there's a fairly regular stream of strategies going from renewal to cabinet. We've got more coming up in the next cabinet meeting as well. So we've got this constant revision, constant looking at our strategies, but also we're tying that up with training around it. You mentioned training earlier on, but actually it's fine to review and renew your strategy. But if you're not training the staff in the strategy, then you're creating an imbalance of something that actually will come back to bite you later. So that's part of the ongoing work. I suppose I should caveat all of this and say, this is ongoing from now on. Everything is about continuous improvement. Everything is about listening to what our tenants tell us and seeing how we can improve to meet the standards that we provide against the regulatory regime. And the regulatory is in place, and we will report on an annual basis on the TSMs and other measures. So this is again about collecting data. Data becomes an incredibly important tool in understanding what our tenants are telling us for complaints. The regulator again has been very clear. There's no such thing as bad complaint. All complaints can be learned from. So we have to take that into account. So one of the things that is about our complaints procedure, and actually we've already amended that. We were quite confident, and I think we're really report will actually tell you that that's a good complaints procedure that we're having to tweak. And it's interesting because as the regulators started to apply it, I think there will be more tweaks coming because they're going to be learning as we're learning. And it's a constant learning thing. And for me, it's also worrying that you don't reach the point towards our staff, because we don't start back to have to configure breathing space because there's BAU and there's high volume of BAU, but we still have to keep moving forward and still keep the message. So staff culture is important because with all organisations you get pockets of culture that may not exactly be where you'd like it to be. And so part of the training that we did was around culture, around the fact that our tenants have a right to be treated with respect, they have a right to live in the property in the same, have a right to live in the property that doesn't have damp. All those sorts of things that many of our staff accept and understand that, and they've got no issue. But there are small pockets that we need to address, so we're doing quite a lot of work on looking at those issues as well. I've mentioned data management. I will continue to mention data management every time I come back to this committee. With strategic partnership work, we're good at that. We engage lots of different people, we engage with outside bodies, we engage with other authorities, and certainly homelessness. We're looking at how we can support each other to address the homelessness issues. Housing budgets, we looked at those, and the report is a little in history, but the principle is the same. When we wrote this, we put 7% rent increase. We did much the same this year, and we will do much the same in the following years, because that keeps our head above water. It doesn't give us huge surpluses to play with, but it does mean that we can have a budget that we can work with. And there is a lot of pressure coming on those budgets. So when, many years ago, which will remind us when we went to our 30-year business plan and we bought stock, all the issues that are coming towards us now were never formed as part of that 30-year business plan. So these are all external pressures put on a budget that was in many ways never intended to cope with. Hence why data becomes key, because you have a limited budget that you can then start to focus where you're going to spend that money on those issues that are cropping up in your survey. So it's one of the things that will probably keep me awake at night, is thinking about those budgets, thinking about the pressures. And of course, we've had significant pressure cost of materials as well. That has an impact on our budgets as well. So whilst we love to keep rents as low as we can, those 7% are broadly, in my mind at least, will be told by one of our politicians, whether that's appropriate still or not. But in my mind, that's like where we're going to go, just to maintain and keep our heads above water. Tenant engagement, because generally had been good. And one of the things that came out of the review, that was during COVID, things that, for obvious reasons, we couldn't meet, we couldn't do all sorts of different bits and pieces. And our engagement with our tenants panel, that sort of started. So we've gone to quite great lengths to re-engage with the tenants. The panel is up and running. We now have a chairperson for the panel, which is great. And we've started our regular meetings again. And the tenants, much like themselves as members, they're there to challenge us. They're there to say, where's the money being spent? Why are you doing it like this? What about this? Have you thought about this? Which is a positive thing for us. Because, you know, we like to be challenged because you think you're doing the right thing, but actually somebody else, and some of your questions stay like Richard, you can see that, okay, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So that's a quite significant thing. But we're also looking at other ways of engaging with tenants, because not everybody wants to do everything. I can meet every month, and they're not interested in that, but there might be a project that they have a knowledge about or an interest in. So we're exploring how we might potentially just engage a tenant for a one-off piece of work. So that's an interesting piece of work the team looking at. We reinvigorated our newsletters to tenants as well, which is great. So that's got a lot of factual stuff about it. We can also push the message about contact us, push the message about, you know, if you're in trouble, talk to us, because we can signposts. So yeah, the tenants engagement is a significant piece of work. That kind of leads into housing management as well. Because one of the things that we realise is you've got to have people who are engaged with the tenants. And our teams are quite stretched and quite busy. So we've employed an additional 4 members of staff who created posts and employed them, whose role is to do a little bit of walking around our estates, see how things going, look for things, report things early, engage with people, and try to spot when people are in trouble. You might, I went and saw a tenant probably about 2 Christmases ago. I'm not joking, I looked through the property, and it became apparent to me that, yes, the complaint was valid, but actually I'm looking, and there's no cardboard, there's cardboard instead of cardboard, that actually there are more significant issues here. And so I go out and talk to my teams, and they then engage third parties to support. So debt, we restructured, all those sorts of things. So that's the nature of what we're trying to do with these 4 additional staff. And one of those staff, we already decided that actually we're going to spend 3 days a week looking at those tenants who owe us the most, to engage with them, how to address that, how we can support them. So that we need to collect rents, to be brutally bad. If we don't collect rent, we can't provide a service. But also we want to make sure that people who are under pressure can be supported to address the debt issues still there, but not to go, oh my God, I'm going to have the council bearing down upon. And that's not what we're trying to do, we're trying to engage. So that's really useful. We've also created a new post to look at our data. So certainly in the repairs, that function is a compliance officer who will be saying we've got the standards to meet, but giving the data quite new. So we're looking at, we're taking this seriously, looking at how we engage with that data by having these additional staff. Repair and maintenance, I think I've probably covered that, I think, because that's dominant to do, again, with the data, how we spend money, where we spend money. So data, again, it's important. We've got a draft asset management plan coming forward. So probably the next one after that, I'd like to see that in Cabinet, which sets out what we're going to do with our assets, how we're going to do disposals, acquisitions, all those sorts of things, wrapped up in a new housing asset management. Temporary accommodation, I mean that's a nationwide problem, and a problem that's expanding significantly exponentially as well, which has huge impacts on revenue budgets. I think probably 4 or 5 years ago we were spending something like £28,000 a year in overseas costs. At the moment we're spending something like £1 million, and it's not going down. It's still getting more pressure. Teams under a huge amount of pressure, and obviously people are in situations that they don't want to be in, and we are looking at ways in which we can address temporary accommodation, trying to get people out of hotels. So that's an interesting way that we won't stop exploring. We have to look, trying to look at different ways of providing, working with external people to see if they can provide better accommodation for us. People out of tenancy, so they have to get this short 6-month tenancy to allow them to get back on their feet and allow them to the signposts and government support. And support housing and natural flows into that. And again, we're part of a wider access group. We're looking at a sort of wider pan-asset supported housing strategy to see how we can support ourselves as local authorities, because we're all in the same situation. Our temporary accommodation is good, our hotels are good. We know we have London boroughs that have historically used us as well. So everybody's in that position where it's not a localised thing, and everybody's feeling the same strain. So where can we find where do you find that someone's taken out strain off? And we've been having some interesting conversations with developers about if they buy, I was talking to our landlords panel. It's another thing that we've started doing to be regularly with landlords, just partly to shift away. We don't pay them, we give them a guarantee scheme, so it's like an insurance scheme, but actually, how do we work with you? How do we improve the standard? How do you generate more stock that we may have allocation rights to? We're just having all those conversations because, again, the digital business still goes get to accommodations, most of us do, because it's a huge issue and there's no apparent answer. A significant shortage of housing within the country and of course the private sector that are looking to withdraw from the market as well with some additional strain. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, what I would say is there's a huge amount of work that has gone on behind the scenes over the last 12 months. So I'd offer my cap to all of my teams because there's the volumes of work that has taken on top of all of their day-to-day stuff. I think the actual review helps us significantly because it helps us focus. And actually what we've done is we've moved away from that. It's what we can, and it's entirely tricky politics, but that's what Bocock does to me. What we now have are the standards in which the regulator is going to judge us. So what we've done is we've taken those standards, we've created a traffic light system, and we are looking, and this is, I have to say, to the portfolio holders' request, a monthly meeting with me and all of my managers. We go through this to see where we are against the regulatory standards on each. Having been the chair of governance for a little while, having none of the lots get visitors, it feels a similarity to the environment, as much as it's great if one to fall in that, one in the next. But actually, you have to be harsh on yourself. You have to treat yourself quite hard to say, are we really there? Let's be more negative. Let's challenge ourselves to actually prove it. So at the point where we are listed by the regulator, and the regulator is very clear, every local authority in social housing will be inspected. The regulator has a significant range of powers, all the way up to unlimited fines, and they potentially come in and put development plans in place to make you perform. So huge volumes of work, massive respect to my teams because they've been pushing hard for this over the last 12 months. So I've been certain about the team that this is our norm, this is our new norm now, and it's about continuous improvement. So that's my spiel. I'll leave it over to you.
Yeah, so with this is not something that's going to keep coming back to the audit committee. It's just.
I don't envisage this coming back to the audit committee. This is really an update to yourselves about this is what we did. We are simply coming to a review. This is how we performed, and this is where we're moving. And for all intents and purposes, the action plan we developed and review is finished because that's taken us to a place where we can now apply what we've done to these standards. And actually, this is where we need to judge ourselves against, which is great. And I'm happy to share this. This is just a blank one, so you can see the actual. You can see the pages and pages of the things they're going to judge us against. Our first report is in June. I'm expecting someone because we've been asked by the portfolio holders to do a review of the housing strategy, which we've started, that will undoubtedly look to engage with the open scrutiny process to gain their views and comments and thoughts around that. So this is not an end. This is a constant circle now of improvement that we're going to demonstrate. Think Ofsted is not nothing. Ofsted, you get a sort of flavour. And the regulator is very, very clear that we will be meeting these standards. We don't meet the standards. They'll support us.
Damien, sorry, with these standards, so is it the number of complaints that you get that will help you to grade?
Well, I mean, complaints highlight where you may fail. That's effectively what the regulator is saying. And they're not wrong. In fact, everything the regulator asks for, you can't argue with. We may have issues about resources and finances and all the rest of it, but the thrust of the tenant deserves a safe home and a decent home to live in. How can anyone argue with that? You can't. So the standards aren't just about complaints. The standards are about partly how you deal with complaints, the time and speed in which you deal with them, and how they're resolved. But it is also about delivery, and it's about health and safety, and it is about engagement. So overall, those are 22 have been broken down into 4 sections, and those are the sections we then report on. If I send this to you, you can see, and that gives you a level of detail that gives you that level of understanding of what the regulations do.
Thank you. On the tenants not to blame thing, have we had any major complaints? I'm very aware that there are solicitors out there throwing a line at and saying, as a local council.
So we do have, I guess this is a person who's not allowed to get involved in politics, but my view is there are those solicitors out there who effectively ambulance chase. And I think at the moment we have 12 disrepair claims on the go at the moment, which some have some basis, some have no basis in our mind, but that's a legal discussion that the legal people have with them. So we do get those. Some of them have a genuine issue, yes, we can deal with them. But the way in which those, in my mind, scrupulous solicitors deal with this is the advice they give their tenants is not actually right and might not legal, because they often will try to prevent us from getting access, which we're not allowed to do. The only time in which we can't gain access is if we've actually got courts, hearings, and all of that. But up until that point, we should be allowed to look to remedy the situation. And generally speaking, if you go to court, what they'll look at is the degree of harm, the length of time of that harm, and then that's how compensation is decided based on that. So it's difficult. We belong to a group called Arch, which represents the Association of Retaining Housing Stock. They represent local authorities, American Dairy and others around this situation, because it's something that in some parts of the country has been a significant focus, and I know we were talking to one authority who has become associated with and actually created an entire team just to do disrepair claims. Compared to, we've only got 12, and I think hundreds coming in. So to me it feels relatively simple. The same way that we stop whiplash claims, you put a block and put a ceiling on the actual volume of the claim, would stop this. And we've engaged with civil servants, hope they talk to ministers, so that, to us it seems quite a simple way to resolve. At the moment we don't seem to be getting a lot of traction. And funny enough, I'm also engaged with, through Arch with RICA. We're looking at standards, so a uniform standard for people to carry out a site condition service. So we're all doing the same thing. That allows us all to talk in the same way, and then trying to combat these claims.
So sorry, just sort of supplementary then. So part of your team's meetings, once you've got surveyors going out and looking at all the houses,
yeah.
This could be a trick question, somebody asked us earlier. So will there ever be a case then, so we do a report on all of our stock, would there be an instance then, or the level we get to, and say in actual fact, 10% of them is not worth us repairing, so we consider selling them off to be able to raise money to repair the stock which is worth repairing.
So another really good question. So the portfolio holders asked us as part of the asset management plan to look at those disposals. So he said where we have properties that are too expensive for us to repair, we have some buildings, we have some really old stock. Actually, he would like to understand what that is, and he would like a process for us to get rid of them. So I'm not hedging it because I haven't got a full answer. I believe from portfolio holder, his view is if they're too expensive to maintain, why are we keeping them? Because it's a strain on HRA. And actually what we want to do is to use our money wisely. We do have small properties that we're looking at the moment, but we've got 4 that get attention for disposal for exactly that reason.
Yeah. Well done, and pass
Thank you. Yesterday, Guy wanted to issue by HM government again, detailing very much of what this part of your report included, the part where how to treat tenants.
Yes.
This idea that you can no longer be nasty, they've got to have a court appearance first, and all that carry on. I haven't got the paper yet, but I've ordered it, which is supposed to be coming down in the next few weeks. This is quite fascinating. Well, one of the modules, if you break it into modules, one of the modules that would stop is data.
Yeah.
Collection, how you collate it, where you store it, how you share it.
Yeah.
And this is becoming more and more and more, and where the tenants are becoming less and less and less, and administration seems to be, the bureaucratic side of this becomes stronger. Is this something that, am I on the right track with this one?
But it's an interesting question, because the portfolio holder sort of said something similar to me around the fact, are we going to be spending our time just preparing to pass an exam? I think it's the expression used. And in many ways, of course, we are. We have a regulatory standard that we can comply with. I would say that none of my staff have been nasty to tenants. That's not what it is. That probably relates to the fact that when it comes down to mould issues, historically, we were able to look at whether lifestyle had an impact upon the causes of damp and mould and things like that. We're not allowed to do that now. That's something that we're not allowed to say it's a lifestyle issue. What we have to do is try to address how those damp and mould conditions cause. So we collected a lot of data now. So on our surveyors' sheets, we take pictures, we take notes, they're detailed because they come back to this repair claim, they are evidence. So if anything goes horribly wrong, you have very detailed inspection. It gives you sufficient to be able to back up what you're saying and any potential disagreement, legal or otherwise. But I mean, it is really difficult. My teams are trying to develop what we were calling a tier distant approach. So that when we talk to our tenants, so we just grab 10, 15 minutes, let's talk about how damp is caused. So damp comes in many ways through how you rise and damp the ingress, but also compensation damp is caused by the building and people and how they use it within them. So there are simple ways to remove damp. You can vent a building, you can open windows in 15 minutes. Modern windows often have triple vents, and actually they work very successfully in a house. A lot of our houses may not have got to that position, but we have a rolling program, placing doors and windows. So what we're trying to do is to educate tenants in methods in which they can look after themselves, they can prevent damp. Even just overcrowding a room with too much furniture, we don't move the furniture. You'll find behind the furniture in the bottom, damp and mould will be encouraged because there's no exit furniture, there's no movement there. We use mechanical means if we can't resolve the problem. We'll put positive air systems in, they drive the air and force movement, albeit very gently. They're very successful, but they're around, I think, £2,500 to £3,000 a go. So we've got stock of 3,200 homes, just broad path. So I mean, it is fascinating, and we have trained our staff in the healthy homes, the stuff that the private rented sector will do. Our housing surveyors will all have that training as well. And interesting conference where there was a bit of a disagreement between some authorities and the regulator. The regulator said, if you don't know this standard, how can you make a judgment? And with me, that was resonant. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. So when we came back, we trained our staff, we found money, we trained them. They now all know what that standard is when they're doing inspection. They're inspecting it as a healthy home standard, which is great, because actually when we find a problem, we can resolve it. So it is difficult, because when you're getting hard times, when people can't afford to put their heating on, they don't necessarily want to bend the roof. They're slightly overcrowded. We may have situations where we've got no capacity, you've got an overcrowded house. I mean, I can't remember what the figure is, but at night when we sleep, we breathe out litres of moisture into a room. So the more people you have in a crowded space, the more moisture you're generating just overnight. And simple ways of venting can help. Closing the bathroom door, and the shower, opening the window, closing the kitchen door when you're cooking. They're all things that you don't. They allow the damp air to travel around the home. So there are those things, but it is a difficult path in my mind in trade, because you also, what we're needing to do when we're in those situations is spot those things and report them back and try to point them in the right direction to be able to help them. If you can't do anything on the sharp forwards, is it because you're in debt, or is it because you genuinely can't? Can we have a conversation with a utility company? We did with the case I mentioned, we were actually able to reduce the rate they were paying because they were in debt, and actually, because we were at fault, we also as an authority put money to allow that individual to have heating and cooking facilities over the Christmas period. But they're things that we have to do. We have to spot this, and we have to be able to walk around and stay walk around somebody's house and think something's not right. And why reports to the individual may not be able to resolve them, but they may be able to point to somebody else and continue to get third party involved. It's a very complex a situation that we're not just dealing with bricks and mortar, we're dealing with people, and we're dealing with all the social elements that sit around people as well as economic elements. And it puts a lot of pressure on one thing. And no longer can any of my housing just say like this. They do multiple things.
Just a couple of things, yes, supplementary for me. I noticed, I don't know if it's contained in here, I haven't had a lot of time to read this, I've only had it days. There's a recent ombudsman report in which they picked up governance, so how data is collected. I'm assuming that's correct because that's in there. And so again, you see, we're aiming towards this, the bureaucratic side of the whole thing. And as an interesting point in picking up on what you're saying, we as members, we're very wary of where we go now because we got embroiled a little while ago with a case where, how can I diplomatically put this, where it had a slight touch of I am the victim syndrome. You've got to be careful that you stay within your role as members, as governance, and not slide out into officer role. And we were being pushed very hard in that direction, and that was something I wanted to get some guidance on from yourself on that some other time.
Yeah, we can talk about that outside of this meeting, but I would urge all members, if they see anything they see around our tenants, to talk to us, to report it to us, to flag out. Because if there are tenants, we will engage with them, we will talk to them, we'll see if they want our support. Because sometimes we don't always want our support even, we can't force ourselves. But our tenants have rights to be rights to our properties, and recently we've had to take actions to try to gain access to our own properties. We don't want to let them see, but we have statutory duties, carry out gas inspections, electrical inspections, all those things. So it is difficult to get somebody who really doesn't want to. We end up going to court to get permissions coming to our property, but do those things. We're much slicker doing that now. And we used to write 3, 4, 5, 6 letters to people, now we're 2, and then we're to court because we have to get the statutory obligation to do things. But I do take on board also the data really is key. All of this, it seems heavily bureaucratic, but actually an element of work there. But I think if you get your data right, especially when we're in tight budgetary situations, you can target that spend and you can cut the costs to suit. Without that data, you're a little bit big in the air. So for me, I think the collection of data is right. It helps us. But do I think there's a certain amount of working to pass things out? Yes. I think we naturally have no choice but to do that because we have to meet these standards. That said, there's nothing wrong with standards. And so it's a difficult one, and it's a slight change in the way we've done it. We've never been regulated before. The regulators have got a lot of effort, and we've been to lots of meetings to engage with us and us engage with them. In fact, I think we've got another meeting with our nominated regulator to meet with the chief exec and us and the portfolio holder to again engage. They're offering advice, talk to us, because local authorities historically never had to self-refer. We have a duty now. When something significant happens, we have to self-refer to the regulator for them to come and see what's gone on and what we've done. So it is, as I say, a huge amount of work over the last 12, 14 months. Still a huge amount of work more to go. We'll continue along that line. But I wouldn't be frightened of the data. I kind of hear what you say, the collection of data is really important. No, it will give us. I think we've got some questions to talk about how we internally share our data. I think that's a big question that we need to talk about, the GDPR issues. But again, we'll work our way through those and how we make sure that the authority as a whole actually is using its data properly, not having sections that say, oh, you can't have that, you can't have that, but actually sit next to each other. We can do that if I wanted to. But we do have a little bit of that going on, and we need to look at how we resolve that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, really good report. Thank you, Damien. I guess my experience would be that if you've got a very clear baseline of where you've got to be, you're able to work efficiently to have efficiency, if you like.
Yeah.
So I think that would be helpful. I think, yeah, there's a huge amount of work going on in the background and a great deal of change. That must be difficult. Periods of change can be difficult for people, especially within teams. So it's nice to hear that you're working on team ethos, if you like, and if everybody sort of understands what the expectations are, then again it just becomes leaner and
Absolutely.
better. So continuous improvement, program of change, what do you foresee being the tripping hazards moving forward?
So the data will come to us and tell us we need to do this. Our budgets are what our budgets are. So we'll be 3.1 million.
Yeah. There's two lots of capital space, 6 or 7 million.
So it's how you fit all those things, knowing we're still waiting on decent homes too from government to see what happens. Our view is that's likely around installation, around those sorts of things, with a very old stock. And so depending on what comes from decent homes too, we're going to have to deal with that as it comes up. So it is those external pressures. It's all the different things that we find. But again, the more detail we get, the more detail we get in our stock condition surveys, the more we can become efficient with our budget. That's, for me, that's a real magic. And that's the bit that we're likely to stumble. Because if something hits us that we're not aware of and it's significant, or we get legislation to change that's significant, and we have our budget, even with our increments that we're suggesting that just keep us above water, that's the bit that we really careful. That's the bit about cutting our cloths, where we may still we have a 5-year programme on doors going plug out here, otherwise it has no validity. But if we take that programme, we may have to stretch that to 7 or 8 years. We may have to do things like that to extend the period of time in which we do some more basic things. We have to do more statutory things. So it is really how we deal with that data. The more data comes in, the more comfortable I feel we will be able to look at those issues. So at the moment, February we get base budget agreed. March we do something we call the HIPS budget, where we break that down. We talk about portfolio holders, housing about, this is where we're intending to spend it. My view is that historically we used to go once a year, chunk through our work, and that's it, that's that stuff. I see that being a much more fluid thing, where we'll be changing as we go through the year, as we get more data, as things come in, we're saying, actually, we need to do less of this and more of this, and we'll do this, I think, all the way through the year. So it becomes more efficient, it becomes more flexible, and it's not just locked in, right, that's what we're doing, folks. And we have to understand that. We have to get that message into our tenants as well, how we deal with that through our tenants panel. And we have to engage them in the budgetary process as well, so they understand and can challenge us on what we're doing. But it all comes based on the data. So we present with the data, and then we say, this is what we're doing, it's based upon this information that we have. And the chair, it's a new chair, but I'm confident that she will challenge as well, which is what we need. We do need engagement, but the engagement is that critical friend engagement. It's the one that says, I'm sure that you back it absolutely right, we can do this, is great, we like to look at that, great. We can then also talk to our other tenants as well. So it's a circle. It's a huge work.
I wrote down, openness and clarity in conversation and communication is absolutely key.
Yeah.
And obviously your KPIs where you're measuring your success are against your regulations, which you're going to share with us, which would be very helpful. Sign up, I was going to say. So based on all of these changes, how does that affect any changes within internal audit for your department?
So for me, and Craig and I will talk about this outside of this meeting, it'll be this. I would want audit to double check what we're doing. So we're going to be harsh on ourselves. Audit will come and say, actually, yes, that's right. You might better just than you realise, or actually, you need to do more work on this. And I would expect us to be working closely with Craig and his team about how we address those issues. But fundamentally, now we know what we're going to be measured against, we have to put our actions against this monthly meeting to be challenged. Portfolio holder will also be challenged by the regulator. So politicians are drawn into this and will be held responsible for strategic direction. So they'll be challenged by the regulator as well. So my portfolio holder wants that golden thread. He wants to challenge, he wants names, he wants timescales. We're very, very firm about this. We already had our introductory meeting with all of my managers to explain how this process is going to work. Not to get upset by it, because it's quite appropriate for the portfolio holder to challenge, to understand that we are also doing the things that we should be doing rather than just saying that that's fine. And actually, I don't want that. I want the portfolio holder to challenge. I want people to say, are you doing that right? Because if we don't, isn't that little comfortable, cosy that you get it, you think, I'm doing a great job here. The reality is you might not.
Back then, would we incur any fees on failing?
So the regulator can charge. They're up to an unlimited fine, depending on the issue that's going on. We pay the regulator. I think for us it's going to be something like £70,000 a year. We also pay the ombudsman. So it's a slight shift to need to pay this model, which is quite a significant rise from I think about £3 to £8 per unit. So they charge you per unit that you have, per house or flat. So for us, it's whatever the charge is multiplied by 3,200. And that's what our charge, and I think the regulator is about £27,000. So we do pay for the privilege of these things. And the ombudsman and the regulator are working more closely together as well. We've had meetings with both, as you can imagine, through Arch, but also through online meetings and bits and pieces.
Just a couple of things. I suppose the first comment, I suppose, is I think good regulation is reasonable and proportionate. Hopefully, sitting 2 years time ago, that's exactly what we've got. But I do worry because the government don't always get the right balance to that. But you can't argue with the regulation and points it made, can you? So you can't argue with that. But the other thing I was going to make about the inspection, we'll be inspected.
Yes, at some point.
That will come back to the committee when the outcome of that.
Oh, yes.
Actually get back.
Absolutely.
And I just, in the interim, how do they get assurance that we're doing all the right things? Because you talk about naturopathic as well. So let's see scrutiny, when it's scrutiny go through. Because I think, how do we get that kind of quarterly feel that it's going okay, I suppose?
Good question. I mean, I made an assumption that it goes to scrutiny. I mean, I have no problem coming back here. If you want to come back on a until most of
As long as it's going back somewhere, and that's where I was sort of getting to.
That's the conversation, is it? Members have assurance that not at the inspection time we found it's got to be before it.
Yeah.
We're not saying we're about, but you want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, achieving the right thing during the process. But perhaps we'll have to about where that.
I'm happy to be well. You know, for me, I'm again happy with the challenge. I'm happy with the where I am. Because otherwise you can feel a bit isolated with these things sometimes. And actually, it's good to know that others are interested. And actually, others asking questions to give us an answer.
Thank you.
So thank
you, Chairman. Yeah, I was just conscious today said he wasn't going. You weren't expecting him to come back to committee.
Yeah,
and actually, that's really helpful as well, Richard. So that we, I just want to, before the, red line, you sort of want to know where we're at in advance of that red line.
At this juncture, we don't know the regulator where we understand is written to those authorities that are inspecting this year. I haven't left them yet, so I'm assuming they're not in this tranche. But we have an incident where we have to self-confirm. That's very likely to trigger an inspection in my mind. So this thing I'll look at everything else. And my understanding is they're ready to send them significant detail.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David.
I don't think we come out of those recommendations, are there? So it's supposed to be, isn't it? So it's supposed to be.
Yes.
I won't warn you, you should never let me speak.
So, I'm happy to move that recommendation and the seconder, so we are now going to go to numbers.
Are you happy to take item 6?
Yes.
I think that is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got the report of the Assistant Director, Finance and IT. Paid to external auditors draft audit plan and strategy for the year ending 31st of March 2024.
I've done a cover report which includes a couple of sort of fee-based stuff and such through back to base, but I think more than ever, I don't want to steal your thunder. I don't want to say anything you can say, so I think it's best if you're happy that you take the committee through your report, that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for that, and apologies for not being there. I've had a slight diary mishap today. I would have normally come. So we've got today it's the draft audit plan. I think just important to caveat that it is still very much a draft document. Whilst we have started our planning, we have got various bits that we need to finish, but recognising that Richard and the team have been under quite a lot of pressure in terms of getting the accounts out for this year, trying to deal with prior year audits. It's a good sort of position that we've been able to get a draft document to you today. The other thing, just to flag in terms of its draft status, it will need to remain in draft until the consultation process is concluded and we've seen the outcomes of that. predominantly because we just need to understand the work that we will need to do over an opening balance position, because of us, obviously, as we heard earlier, that there will be disclaimed prior year accounts. Rest assured, we're already working on that. We are not expecting that we need to do a full opening balance audit, so not going to be redoing everything, but there will probably be some elements of additional work that we need to do over that opening balance position. And we are also hoping that there will be some direction probably from the PSAA in terms of access to prior year audit files, because, you know, quite rightly, looking at a disclaimed audit opinion file is not going to really give us much. So we are hoping that there might be some movement that we would be able to look at the last signed audit file, which would give us some additional assurance. But in terms of the plan that we've got today, I'll take the report as read, but I'll probably just pause on a couple of pages. So page 3 of my document, which is page 47 of the main pack, just sets out our level of materiality here. So our headline materiality is just 2.2 million. What we have lowered is our sort of the next level down. So materiality is the top level, then we have our level that we design all of our procedures to. I've reduced that down to 65% in recognition of the fact that we won't have an opening balance sort of position. So we will need sort of potentially expect some additional findings to come out. So we need to lower that level there. And we will report any findings unadjusted or adjusted through to the Audit Committee above 114,000. In terms of the next point, if we just jump to page 5 or page 49 of the pack, this just sets out our initial assessment of the significant risk areas, so those areas that we consider there to be the most audit risk linked to them. As I say, this is just based on the procedures that we've done to date, so this is subject to further change. We've pulled out four significant risk areas. So the first one is just around the potential inappropriate capitalisation of fixed assets expenditure. So really recognising the fact that you've got quite a large capital programme, and understanding that actually should all of that capital programme be capitalised, is any of those elements, should they be through to the revenue side, and that's really to you know, given the pressure of that, we consider that there could be a sort of fraudulent risk there around year end. The next risk we've got is just around the valuation of fixed assets. Valuation of fixed assets in particular has high levels of judgment estimation involved when you start looking at actually how those valuations are prepared. So it's not that I think you have got a particular more risky valuation process than others. It's just an area that we often do see as heightened risk because of that level of judgment that's involved in those valuations. So we will utilise our valuation specialists to help with any review in that area. The third one we have there is just around the valuation of the pensions. So again, another area where there is a high degree of estimation and judgment involved in calculating that year-end position. And we will utilise our pensions expert. So we've got a centre of excellence that does all of our pensions work for us, and they will have a look at that key risk. The fourth risk, don't worry, it shouldn't be on the graph. I haven't missed a little bubble. The fourth risk there is management override of controls, and that is the sort of pervasive risk across the entire audit that management, if they so wished, are in that unique position where they could override controls if they wanted to for fraudulent purposes. So we always have a look at this on every single audit, and really that's focusing on sort of key areas such as journals or other key areas of estimation. The fifth point that I just pulled out there is not what I consider to be a significant risk, but it's just another area of focus, and I do expect this probably just to be a first year area of focus. So the Essex Pension Fund, it has a surplus position, so you will be recognising a surplus asset. There are relatively clear criteria as to when you recognise a surplus from a pension point of view, so we will just make sure that we are comfortable that you are right in that position to be recognising that asset. So once we've got comfortable with that, that should then be generally a reconfirmance every year rather than a risk area. So set out in the following pages more details as to the underlying risks and our planned responses to those. And then probably the other areas just to touch on is page 15 of my document, 59 of the full pack. This just sets out our approach to value for money. So we've had some very high level initial look at value for money. We've got quite a lot of work that we still need to do for value for money. So we'll bring our full risk assessment through to a later audit committee. But I think it's just important to note our risk assessment and value for money approach probably will differ quite significantly from BDO. We look at the three domains, so that you look at when you consider value for money. So the first one is around financial sustainability. So that's really understanding how your budgets are set, the looking at things such as your stress testing, what assumptions have you put into your medium-term financial plan, how does that marry to sort of strategy and general sort of process. We then look at governance. So governance, quite the broad, very important area. So how are decisions made? And that is looking at governance across the entire organisation. So not just sort of homing in on one sort of element of it. Also covering their sort of risk management. So how does risk management work across the organisation? How are risks identified? How are they fed up and appropriately considered and filtered down? And the third area, so the third domain, is the proven economy, efficiency and effectiveness. And so this is saying actually, how do you utilise your funds? Are you utilising those in the most effective way? So looking at procurement in particular, if you've got any savings targets, how are they managed? How are they identified? And again, how does that sort of track through to your financial sustainability plan? We pull on various bits of information from other organisations as part of the value for money for assessment. So we'll look at what internal audit have been doing. We'll have a look at any of the external regulatory reports, peer reviews, anything like that sort of feeds in. We will also give due regard to the work that BDO are doing. So as you say, so one of the elements of the consultation was that value for money still should be completed. So we will have a look at the work that they've done around the value for money, because that will be completed up to the 22-23 year end. And if they identify any risks or weaknesses, we'll obviously consider those as part of our own assessment. Other than that, I think it's probably just the page 20 of my document, 64 of the pack, just setting out our expectation on timeline. So there is obviously risk still sitting in here until we've got the confirmation of the firmed up date, but working on the assumption that the backstop date will be the 30th of September. We are hoping that we will be able to start some work over the summer. So once we have sort of clarity that a disclaimer is going to be issued, and some of the internal processes that we have to go through from our risk side, that if that is the case, even if we haven't got that signed opinion, are we able to do some work? But we'll start probably early September, maybe the end of August, depending on resourcing capacity within both teams. And my aim is that we would still be done in the main by the end of the year. Obviously, we might tip slightly into January, depending on where we get to with the opening balance work and how how much work we have to do in that area. But we are well resourced to make sure that we are signed off ahead of the proposed backstop date, which for 23-24 will be the end of May. In my mind, the very latest we would want to be going is the end of March, but I am aiming that we are concluded in the main by probably the end of January to get us through signing at that point. But otherwise, happy to have any questions. Confirmation of independence is set out as well in one of the appendices, and just to flag that we are doing some additional assurance work, so some of the grant claims for the authority as well. But otherwise, happy to have any questions.
Oh, thank you, Emma. So it's good to hear that you've already started working, liaising, etc. We are waiting on the handover, obviously, but we'll get up regular updates from you on every audit meeting. So we will.
Yes. Yeah, that would be. I'll come to each audit committee, so I might not necessarily have a full paper each time, but happy to give a verbal update as how things are progressing. There is definitely work we will be able to continue to do even whilst BDO are finishing, so we're not standing still. But obviously some bits we are dependent on some of the conclusion of that.
Any further questions for Emma?
For Rich, perhaps more than Emma, but just really a comment, I guess, in terms of the draft as it's come forward and the risks that have been mentioned so far. Is there anything that you would like to expand on within that?
No, we're fairly comfortable. There's nothing unusual there. I mean, a lot of them are thematic, aren't they? They're not necessarily tendering specific, but obviously there's a judgment on tendering specific. There's kind of themes, so we're fairly comfortable with that. So I've got no concerns at the moment. The only concern I've got is to close the accounts on time, because it's just the pressure is just huge. Close away in May.
Yeah.
We were really hopeful the government would slightly shift that to just the end of June, but we've got nothing from the consultation. The consultation that Steve talked about earlier on was, did it lose to the fact they might have loosed the date of the offshore accounts? Not sitting there, so it's still end of May, so that's a scary part of anything, but I think it's a great there, very comfortable with. I think, hope don't mind Emma, is, I know you said statutory backstop dates of the accounts is next year, but you're looking to conclude that by the end of January, but the important bit is that interim value for money bit, isn't it? I know we talked, so I think that's going to be a lot earlier, isn't it? That was your kind of aim, wasn't it? Get something to members.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the risk assessment, you'll definitely have, hopefully, if not the next audit committee, the one subsequent to that, just depending. We're obviously about to hit our NHS busy period, so I would have liked us to have been slightly further ahead on that, but just as I said, given the capacity in Rich's team, we haven't quite got there. But what I think is also important to note is we will issue the interim report that we will issue will be pretty comprehensive, so it will be a full narrative document for you, which will essentially lead its way into what the annual audit report will look like. So it's our sort of starting position, because for us, obviously value for money is around arrangements in place during the year, so we should realistically have been able to do a lot of that work up front and early. So yes, so you will definitely get that in the near future. As I say, we won't be able to conclude all of that work until we have seen the outcomes of BDO's work, and we've also concluded our own audit. But you'll definitely get that interim position soon. That's what I can say.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I think you've set yourself quite a high bar, because initial impressions it's what we've been asking for so long about the security and the assurances. And what your presentation, I think, is assured all. And another area which maybe we don't want to take for granted is the pressure on our staff, because over the last few years, both teams spent staff time, to actually do things. You've been asked for different information that you go on. It must have been very, should I say, tedious at times, because, so very impressed. But obviously we'll hopefully lead to a really good relationship moving forward. So we look forward to your continued positiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think you are right. There's a huge amount of pressure on the finance teams, and I think that the backstop date, whilst it draws a line, in the sand, and we will be able to move on from that. I think that just the level of uncertainty puts pressure on everybody. We have staff in place to do the audit, so we will get it done. The only thing that I say will potentially cause an issue in timelines is the guidance we receive around opening balances work, and at what point BDO actually conclude. So the sooner we can get that done, the better, and we can get going. But otherwise, me and Richard, we have frequent catch ups, so we know what we're doing. We've just there is a lot of pressure, and I fully understand that. So we're being as flexible as we can for that.
Lovely, Claire. Thank you for joining us today. And have you got anything else to add?
No, I think it's just that they need the regulation of post 41. So
Yeah.
ask you to consider
I'm happy to, move that recommendation, and I need to second that. Perfect. Thank you.
Is there still anyone?
Yeah.
Nothing I can add to say. No pressure is a note I would post it.
It's positive quote, just keep a note of that. I was reading.
We'll give you that. You can't get it.
Right, so I think we're back on track now.
Rest of that,
So item 5, report of the internal audit manager A1. Report on internal audit.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know how I follow Damien and Emma now. One is interesting. Page 20 of my report. So I've got 2 reports for you. One's the progress report, periodic update that I usually give you. And the other part of the report is for the new internal audit plan for 24-25. I'll take you through the internal progress report first, and then I'll take any questions if you like, and then we can move on to the plan. So since the last committee, we've completed 4 audits in the plan. There's been no significant issues identified within those audits that we've completed. However, we have, within the report, we have been victim of payroll fraud since we last spoke. And we've lost roughly about £4,000 in one officer's pay, which went to the wrong account, and then obviously was emptied, and we haven't been able to get it back. So we have since looked into that issue. It was a breakdown in control, really, which we've since put right. So that will not be happening again in the short term. We're currently implementing a new payroll system, which is a more modern system. So longer term goal is that we have an electronic control that takes that out of any human. There's no human error in that. But at the moment, so we reported to Action Fraud as well. So and the bank were aware, and we've done everything we possibly can to try and get it back. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we will. But in terms of updating the committee, yes, I would have been a lot more worried if it was a payment to a contractor, because there are a lot of larger payments. But it's a smaller amount. We've resolved the issue. It won't be happening again. And we've spoken to the service. So we just wanted to make sure that the committee are aware that we have fallen foul of that, and that we've put that right since. So the other parts of my report that I'm asking of the committee, really, I'm requesting to defer 4 audits in the current plan, purely because a number of things, really. I'm still currently covering full compliance as well, so my time is split. We've had a difficult year really with staff being off long term, which we have to cover for to try and get us back to where we are. So for me, and as I said to you before, we're constantly assessing the risk within the plan in terms of what's the most important audits or things, what will prevent me from giving you an opinion in June in terms of the overall assurance of the council's activities. And Damien, obviously, one of those audits is the social housing bill implementation plan, which Damien has just taken you through. The reason why the risk for me is a bit lower is because Damien and his team are working on that currently. They're going through that, and it's fresh in their minds. They're going through that at the moment. So the audit would have been more consultative. So we've been looking at way talk about data analytics. We know data analytics inside out. That's kind of what we do. So part of that would be to support Jamie's team and how they get that information, how the most efficient way. Is there other ways that other places, because we are the only department in the council that really sees how everyone works. So is there ways that other people do it that might benefit Jamie's team? That would have been the sort of work that we would be doing. So at the moment, reason why that's one of the ones I'm deferring to a later date is because Damien's currently working on it, and Wolves is next year to come on and support them. So we've got Careline is another one. Claire's currently looking at Careline. Again, it's fresh in people's minds. So again, the risk for me from an audit point of view, people are looking at it, there's things ongoing, so therefore I'm not as worried about deferring those audits. But in terms of what I've also set out is the audits that we must complete. The things that we put more, that there's importance to, so like procurement, project management, contract management. They're audits that we must have done before I give my opinion. So we're currently working on those. I think we're quite close. So by June we should conclude all that, and I can give you the opinion, the head of internal opinion. Just make sure there's anything else that. I think that's everything from my periodic update. I don't know if there's any questions from anyone at that point.
No, that's pretty self-explanatory. Just come back to the payroll fraud. Just want to ask, has anything like this happened?
No. So I've been here for 10, 11 years now, and it's never happened. And from my understanding, it hasn't happened in the last 30 years. I think it was just a pure breakdown in communication between sort of officers, and I think that control was quite weak already, because it doesn't happen. People don't really change bank accounts very often. So although we have a control, the officers involved might not actually have to implement it for years, because nobody really changes their own bank. Employees don't change bank accounts that often. So it's one of those where I think there was just a miscommunication as to who's done what, and it was just an error in judgment, I think. And so we've gone in and we've made sure that all the changes they've made, that cannot happen again. And that going forwards with the new payroll system, that we have a process where, like you get with your bank, really, if you want to change something, your bank informs you and asks you, are you okay with this? I mean, that technology is out there, it's within our system now, so that's what we'll be pushing for a long-term control.
I was just going to say, from a personal perspective, people involved was actually very awful. It's horrendous thing happens. So there's officers, it's actually horrendous. The person who's responsible for this, the fraudster, they emailed us. You see these classic frauds, don't you? They email in, they take their chance, don't they? And sometimes they get successful. But from a personal point of view, it must be an awful position, and completely understand that they are. And it's been put right quite quickly. In terms of process, so in terms of assurance, then we should see anyone being successful. These people do this, I'm doing what they do, and it's small amounts, isn't it? Small amounts sometimes, and they get away with it, actually, not more. But that's just from a personal perspective, it's really important to bring in that personal side, because it's an awful capacity.
Which is pretty much, I was going to say something similar in actual fact, it's awful that it's happened, but actually it can really impact on the person that feels that responsibility for it. So, it's good to hear that it's covered, you've got systems in place, it can't happen again, and presumably you will be doing follow-up on those systems to ensure that they are working well.
Yes, I mean, we do a payroll review every year within our plan, and like I said, we've never really been able to look at that process before, because changes frankly don't happen often. Yeah. So although they'll say this is, you can say this is what we would do in this instance, But when I suppose when it comes down to it, sometimes if you're busy and you've got a lot going on, you may miss something. That happens. It's human error.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those where it's just like they've been distraught in terms of the fact that this has happened. But it's something that we can put right straight away. So, and they're definitely aware of that, and I think they're definitely moving into that area of the technology that's coming now is more modern than we've had. So, how can we utilise that better? So. And they're exploring that at the moment, and they're see what the best option is and the most cost-effective way of doing it. So that's sort of longer term plan.
The only other thing, Chairman, I was going to say is that actually when I read the report, I was not particularly comfortable with pushing audits back. Didn't really feel like it sat very well, especially in relation to two issues that, as an audit committee, we're very concerned about. That actually within your report and your explanation of the reasoning as to why those are the ones that you want to put back, I do feel more reassured that that is the right decision in order for everything that should be done to go ahead. So I'd just like to hold that back to the Chair.
Other questions?
Yeah. So the next part of my report is the internal audit plan. I won't go into full detail of how we develop the plan, but we take into account the new corporate plan and all of our, the vision of that, and try to translate that into audits if we can. It's quite a difficult process to do that, but we try. We take into account any guidance from DLUC or government in terms of best value standards as currently the government has set, which sets out what good governance looks like within local authorities, and they literally have set out what a failing organisation looks like. So for us, that's quite good because we can look at those risks and make sure that every element, every part of our audits, that's included. So if there are any governance issues around that, we can identify that as part of our audits. We look at the risk registers, risk management as part of that as well, and also our own sort of historic view of things. I speak to our directors and members as much as I can, just to find out what's new, what's happening, just so that we're aware of it. And then we try to build that into the plan. The plan is essentially made up of sort of what we call key financial audits, which ones that we should be looking at, quite important to this organisation in terms of their interest in everything. So they will be in our audits every year. And then we've got our consultative audits, which I'm a big sort of fan of, and I try to push, because audit is historically always, and I've said this many times before, it's historically looking back, but that doesn't really help our officers, and they may want advice up front. So I try to get involved as much as we can. Anything new, so any like levelling up was one of those, Freeport, so we allocate time for those just to provide any support advice where we can. And then the other part of the plan, which is on page 33, I mean, all of the audits are set out in there, so if you want to have a look through any of the audits in there, and you've got any questions about what they may include or what I'm happy to take any questions on that. But essentially, that's the audit plan. I think one of the things that I will be asking the committee is we usually provide 450 audit days a year. I'm going to be requesting that we can reduce that to 400. The audit plan, the coverage within the audit plan will still allow me to give that the assurance and the overall opinion at the end of the year. I believe, based on the audits that we have in there. It's more because at the moment, Claire's still on secondment, I'm still covering fraud and compliance as well. So my time is split a little bit, but for me, that will help sort of balance the two. So I'll be able to, it'll give me time to support that team as well as the audit team as well. So that's sort of why I've requested to reduce it by 50 days.
With that, Craig, so will the level of standard needed for internal audit, will that still be met? Like, will there be any shortcuts? Because, yeah.
No, I don't believe so. I mean, like I said, we balance out the audit plan based on what we believe we must complete, the work we must complete, and the work we'd like to complete, and requires work and something else. So, in terms of my time, most of my time is about overview of what's going on, and I try to spread the time with my auditors and make sure that they're on the right track. And that's not going to change. We haven't reduced any of the what we call key financial audits. That time is still core and key to the plan. I think it is just some of the sort of audits that we might do, I suppose, every 3 to 5 years, which we class as not as risky. I won't be doing the audits myself. My time will purely be about quality, oversight, and review of the audits, and then the audit team will complete the audits. So previously, the audit plans always had an element of some of those audits I did, but what I'm asking for really is that my review, like my time, is just purely review, as it always is, of the work that the auditors do, as well as the fraud and compliance team as well.
Is there, so you subcontract, if you like, the audit work for an external team to come in?
Yeah.
Do any of the audits get carried out internally by anybody else other than yourself?
Yes, so we've got myself, and we've got principal auditor and auditor, and we've currently got vacancy. So they will do the majority of the audits, and for a quality assessment review. So the audit standards say that there must be an assessment of the work that's carried out. So my role mainly is to make sure that the auditor is undertaking the work in line with the scope that's been agreed. So, and the quality of that work is up to standard. So once they've completed the work, and that's the same with external people as well. If we ever use an external auditor, like
which you have access to.
Which we have before, yeah, we've still got that access as well if we need it. So if there is any audits that we really need, that's when I'll use that additional capacity. But that would still require my time, because it still needs that quality review, which even if it's done by an external person, because I need to make sure that they're doing it to the standard that I expect within our team. So it would, yes, I would gain that capacity using someone else, but I'd still have to use my time to overview what they've done.
So what work is ongoing then, Craig, to fill that empty space that you have? Because surely that would reduce the work or spread the workload.
What, in terms of using an external capacity?
We're talking about reducing 50 days of
Yes.
audit. You're not wanting to put that out through an external sort of subcontractor to cover those 50 days, because you've still then got to assess them. You've got an empty space on your team. It's been empty for...
But yeah, for a while, I think every time we recruit, we then lose that person quite quickly.
So what are you doing to address that?
So we are going to be going out to recruitment again, so to try and fill that void that we have. In terms of, I suppose what I'm trying to achieve with it is that we're still giving, I believe that in terms of the work that we're putting forward for the new year, it's still I've tried to benchmark against other authorities with the same level of assurance, and I think we're still in that area, even by reduction of time. So for me, it's a case of, I still believe we can give that opinion with that amount of work, but we've still got that flexibility if we need to do more. So because as I say, we review throughout the year. I'm constantly reviewing where we're at, and if we've done enough, if the quality of work is good enough. That's sort of my role in the team, making sure that we're at the right place. So for me, that flexibility is still there, and if we really do need it, I will use it. But I suppose it's just, for me, I'm asking the committee if the plan that I'm putting forward, if you are happy that with that reduction of days, with the flexibility still, if we need it, is that enough for you, I guess, to still accept my opinion?
Yeah.
I think it's always difficult to do. It's always difficult. This conversation is always going to be difficult. Reducing audit time is always going to be a tricky one. I think for me, there's this thing where you've got Craig, you do enough work, don't you, to deliver your audit opinion. If he's got more time, it's got added value, isn't it? He can do more stuff. But actually, let's do more stuff then. Because why not do more stuff? Because there's still risks to the authority that you're potentially not discovering because you pared your work down to your core element. Now, I think for me, we've had long conversations about it, is that your secondment starts longer. We are not doing, in effect, in that language, technically, Woody Craig's not doing added value, are you? You're doing the kind of the basics. I've been a bit kind of extreme on it, but the basics. But what we can never do is let that secondment situation jeopardise the risk that its councils could potentially be exposed to. It's a juggle. I think I'm comfortable, uneasily comfortable, I think, to be honest, aren't we? I mean, that's where we are. You're going to report back every meeting to the committee. We've got to be really honest with ourselves, haven't we? Because if there's anything that jeopardises that level of coverage, we've got to say, you know what, it doesn't matter the secondment's going on, we need to inject capacity into this. Either through, we talked about before, the agency staff, recruitment, it's not easy, or we have a contractor, because I know there's audits that we can get a contractor in to do, can't we, standard audits, is that as of today, could change tomorrow, as of today, we're fairly comfortable that the resource is there to do that. But you're doing less work, in effect, and we can't argue with that. You're doing less work than you would have done. But we are an organisation that's got a lot of things going on this year as well. We've got 3 reports, got an adding up as well. You're going to have to be involved in that, so we're not saying not to be involved in that. So it's trying to kind of get the right balance between all of those things that are happening. It's quite a dynamic organisation, and we're just trying to get the right balance.
It is a judgment. It is essentially subjective in terms of, because not, like I say, we didn't realise Claire's comment was going to last as long as it has. So I suppose what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to balance that, making sure that both teams have got enough of my time. And some of the things that we have noticed as well is that the skills and expertise of some of the fraud and compliance staff, there is an overlap between audit and assurance work as well. And we've started to see that a little bit in terms of but it's very early days in terms of how that works and everything. But I suppose it is that balance. It's that balance of can I give that opinion, which I believe I can based on this level of work, while still making sure that they are still able to do the work that they need to do as well.
With the added value, you talking of multi-skilling the team, it sounds very good, but as long as it doesn't pressurise.
So it's going to be, sorry, because obviously flexibility was what Anna did on her, so it's exactly this way, exactly this way. But I'm not comfortable to go along with your recommendation and say, yeah, let's go for it. We're going to finish up, aren't we?
Yeah. I wouldn't expect any value.
If I could just finish.
Sorry. You keep ignoring me. If you feel like it exists.
I'm concerned that you've got that space within the team as to whether, we'll drop that off then because we're reducing the amount of work, the resource isn't required, and actually it goes down and you don't continue to have that sort of level of flexibility. I want to know that you've got enough within your team to be able to do what you need to do and to develop with all the changes that there are going on and all the new challenges that are coming forward. So, yeah, I'm asking the question, we're reducing this 50 days, but is that because, actually, we don't need that extra person now? No,
definitely not, because I'm a big fan of the apprenticeship programme. So in terms of, yes, we've got what we call an accounting technician vacancy, which is mainly for the admin work we need to do it. But the way I like to do it is we bring in an apprentice and then try to develop and train them, and then there's potentially an opportunity there for them at the end of that to go into that role. But with both teams, that would allow a bit more interest, should we say, because they would not only be working on just audit, they could have some involvement with the fraud and compliance side, and it's a bit of very good work, which might get us, because we've had in the past, I've sort of come along and said, not really had much luck getting an apprentice or filling a vacancy, and when we do, they move on quite quickly. So kind of with that, bringing a new one in the near future, that with that varied work, it might get a bit more interest for us, and then we'll have that additional coverage to cover both teams, which will help us.
If not, you could just keep them in a cupboard and let them out in the morning and put them back in there.
I was going to say.
I'd just like to make an observation on this and a question, if I may. Listening to what you have said and the roles in which you play intricately within the audit system, you appear to be very stretched in what you're doing. And my question to you is there any other Craig-esques going about that should you unfortunately catch a chill or cold and you move away from your position, will be able to fill your admirable boots?
I mean, I've got, yes, we've got a small team, but it's a very good team. They've been quite consistent since I've been here. I've not really had any problems, and it's like in terms of delivery of plans over the years, we meet it, the work is to a good standard. So I've been lucky, if I'm honest, I think, and I think that we have got people that could cover to an extent, I guess. But that's where the resilience comes in. That's why we built in the access to an external expertise if it's really needed. So if I wasn't around, Richard could access that and say, right, I need head of audit time for however long because Craig's not here, and that's what it's designed for. Whether or not they're as good, I don't know.
Well, you won't show them when you're on the latest repeat.
So the risk of delay or not being able to fulfill that role is in part eliminated. There is something out there which will step into that role.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think there'll always be a time of lapse in terms of getting them in and the time it takes to get them on board and understand the organisation and everything else. But that's what it's designed for. Really. That hybrid approach, just because we are a small team. Like say, if anything happened to me or any of my staff, I think like this was the first year where I had a member of staff that was off for a longer period, and we were quite lucky that our auditor, who's sort of getting more and more experience, was able to do some overtime and cover that, which was more cost effective than bringing someone in. So that we're always looking at that because we are so small. And so you try to sort of think of those risks to your own team as well as everyone else's.
I was just going to say it's bigger than Craig, that question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it segues nicely to the risk report because it's about succession planning and the ability to staff services adequately. I think it's in there. So if we do, we build an events company that we do adequate enough. I think the work you've done in terms of having that external out sort of, put outside with the people involved in your service, because I have confidence in people in your service who can step up and do the role. That was the point, wasn't it? And the structure as well. It's not a flat structure, it's kind of a hierarchical structure. There's growth as well. So we could, I think that your report deals with more general point across the council, because we're all small.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, we're all small teams. Generally, it's probably think we're massive teams, but again, we're quite small, and, you do kind of succession plan where you can. But, we're not massive teams, a lot of teams are quite small, so we do what we can within the vision we've got. Okay, so, yeah, we can recommend that.
Yes, go back to, sorry.
We've got contingency plans in place.
Yeah.
I think we're happy for another review.
Yeah, I think it's got to keep his fish to the fire when he turns up and tells you stuff. You've got to, I've got to feel myself to the same kind of thing, but it's a difficult conversation. When you produce all the company, it's a difficult conversation. And we want to make sure that, you're sure that we cover the important thing. And it's about risk as well, isn't it? It's a bit like the concept of Emma, is that they've got a high level of materiality. So they design their systems. We can spend 4 days on something, the risk is we'd be £50 different. Well, you guys, what's the point of spending 4 days on it for £50 error? So I've been a bit extreme, but again, that's the point. You look at the risk, don't you?
Everyone has a different opinion. I knew it wouldn't be an easy conversation because, but we've always been open and transparent about how we work with the committee. So it is like, yes, I've got a judgment on things, but then so does everyone else. So that's why we're in this discussion. So,
This recommendations on page 16. 16. Yeah. We are
Doing
plan, which obviously consists
Yeah. And I need a second that. Right.
You moved, yeah?
I can't move it.
Yeah.
Right, we are now on to number 7.
Yes.
Yes, report the Assistant Director of Finance and IT, Audit Committee Work Programme for 24-25.
So, yeah, I can take to that. Hopefully it's going to be straightforward. Is this kind of same stuff. So we have a lot of statutory and regulatory stuff to pick up during your 4 meetings a year. So again, it's kind of the same as we would have done last year. One thing to point out is that we've got an item in there which we spoke about before about review of the effectiveness of the audit committee, which we need to look at. Yeah, which all comes into that, which is on there now. What the work programme doesn't include any external audit items, because over the last few years it's been difficult to program them in because we just don't know where we are. So basically what your appendix hasn't included it, the report says actually we'll include those as we come through, even the audit discussions about all the ends that have been back. There's down, it says that. So all that will come back to you. So your work programme is this, plus external audit reports as well as the work programme then it is that we get to see those from Emma. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to really raise after that. So it's all standard stuff.
Yeah. So what's happening? So yeah, recommend and I'm waiting. Yep.
We've done so with that, haven't we?
Done
Where are we going next?
Me.
Oh, we're on to blue. No, I'm not blue. No, you're not.
And then they were missed from the original practice when you got them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. What number was it?
Number 9.
Number
I think it's off the original printed packs, but it's on the
yes,
online
so, exclusion of, no?
Sorry, you've got one here, there's an A9. A9.
Yeah.
That's that one.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is that in our package?
Yes.
Just a little bit worse.
Yeah. So it's the A9 is the corporate update concept.
As you heard, I'm currently still seconded into the care line review role. That's quite crazy work. And that is being reviewed on a 3-monthly cycle, so we'll get back to you obviously when that gets resolved. So I still have some of my original duties, and one of which is the risk management programme report. So I've gone and reviewed the corporate risk register, and you can see that there's 17 being adjusted. There was, this is last put before the panel in July 2023. So I go out to the individuals who are labelled within the report, and I ask for updates relating to those. So that's how that's carried out. So what I'm asking for the recommendation is for the updates to the risk register to be agreed. I'll just run through some of those with you. So the two main ones, I mean, most of the 17 are very small amendments. They're changing dates to programmes, just a few slight amendments. there's the sort of main ones that have been updated are item 7A, which is relating to a local plan, and the biggest risk is failing to submit the local plan to the Secretary of State by the deadline, which is June 2025. And item 2F, which is relating to the Garden Communities project, and it's updating you to say that a planning inspector has been put in place for May 2024. And there's one other thing that I'd like to draw to your attention, which is the request to remove item 2D, which relates to the transformation of tendering project. The risk scores have been reduced to quite low on that one. That's because the programme of works has come to an end, and the decision is that it's appropriate to remove that item from the report, but ultimately it's your decision whether you still want that on there and kept on there at a low score, or whether you'd like to remove that one. So most of the updates, they're listed there for you. You can see they're just small updates, nothing to worry about really. The health and safety element is just to update to say that we have a new NEBOSH trained officer, which again relates to succession planning. We've got a new officer that's now trained so that we carry out the full aspects of the health and safety role. We previously only had one other health and safety officer and myself. So now we've got 3 officers that are trained. So again, that's thinking about succession planning in that area. And just draw your attention to the end of the report really, where it's about, we'd like to remove one item on there that's been on there for some time, which relates to the management team to promote the importance of operational risk management and the organisation to ensure that senior managers implement a process for identifying and mitigating risk. So this item has been completed, so we'd like that to be removed from the outstanding agreed actions. And then you've got 2 other items on there that relate to actions outstanding to identify key operational risks. So this remains ongoing, and this will be put forward. I mean, this work hasn't been carried out because of the secondment really. So we'll make sure that obviously that gets addressed during the 24-25 programme. And then the last item on there, the follow-up item, relates to suitable risk management training, and again this will be addressed during 24-25, which we've already spoken about, the schedule of training. That's going to be added into that schedule of training. So that's it, unless you've got any questions. Just to agree the contents really, and agree the amendments, and to remove item D if you're happy with it, 2D if you're happy with that.
Is 2D within the actual report?
2D is within the main report, yeah.
Is it in here?
Yes, it's on the, it's on the report. It's this one here. So it's related to the effective delivery transformation project. So it's around obviously not reaching the target, not carrying that problem within the defined time scales. That's all been carried out. Obviously the transformation project has come to an end, and all of those issues have now been resolved. So we're doing the amendments to the whole transformation program. So that's why it's not necessary. It has already been on the register for some time, but reduced rate. It just feels time to remove that item.
Yeah, I'll just give some context around it. So it might be that you won't remove it after I'm told what I'm going to sort of mention. But I think as part of the transformation, part of the investment strategy and investment plan, we asked for the service to report back. So any major investment, we'd look for a report come back and say, actually, what were you looking to do, what the outcomes, was it successful, lessons learned. So there is a pragmatism of leaving it on there until that report comes back to Cabinet, which will have the information in it. Because then that will conclude it completely, wouldn't it, in that sense. You've got a risk on here, if then you've got a report coming through to that. So that's just the context of it, that you might want to start say, actually, we're happy to stay on there, let's finish report, and then go from there. This will come back in 6 months.
6 months, yeah, so 6 months we would.
So you've got that choice, so I just wanted to mention that. So,
I think that would be a good idea, because then it's put somewhere else, been reviewed, and then it's come back to us. Right?
I think it completes the circle
Yeah.
in terms of the investment.
That's fine. I'll leave it on there.
So, yeah, so I think,
But other than that,
Any other amendments you okay with? You're happy?
I think we're happy with
They were just general updates. Really.
just general
Just
updates, general
as to
like
where we are
deadlines
now.
move
Yeah.
forward,
Snapshots.
updates on wording and things
external updates. So the two main ones were the local plan and the garden committees.
Not for me, no. Thank you very much.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think we're happy to recommend that.
So happy to recommendation 105?
105, with that one to still be completed and come back to us.
To be raised on
That's
there.
fine.
Two legal remains on there, and then we just need to second that.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so now that brings us to 9. Exclusion of press and public.
That's it.
The committee is asked to consider passing the following resolution. Under section 100A(4) of the Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of agenda item 10 on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 7 of part 1 of schedule 12A as amended of the Act. I'm happy to move that, second that. 27th of June 24.